All right. Guys, y'all are in for a special treat tonight. We've got Crystal from High Point. I could sit up here all day and tell you what she's been to my life, but I don't get the honor of introducing her, but I picked her for a reason. Cindy's going to come up here and introduce the speaker. So if you would, please mute if you're not already muted. Thank you.
I'm an alcoholic. My name is Cindy. Oh, hey, y'all. Wow. It is my honor, you're right, Kip, to get to introduce your speaker. And I was thinking earlier today, what a real privilege it is to get to walk this path with somebody. And, you know, the book talks about you and the new man must walk side by side on the path of spiritual progress. And I can honestly say we've done that together. And I watched Crystal take these steps and really learn how to apply them to her life. And as a result, she's become really honest with herself and with me, sometimes simultaneously. And that's led her to be open-minded, and that's given her more willingness. And as a result, she's completely transformed in her reactions to life. And I've got to watch her discover her power and develop a relationship. And she loves Alcoholics Anonymous, and she loves a drunk. Probably more than anybody I've ever seen, she does. And she's taught me a lot about cheerfulness and laughter, make for usefulness, because sometimes I take myself too seriously. And she really epitomizes happy, joyous, and free. And you are in for a treat, and I'm not taking up any more of your time. Y'all help me welcome Crystal.
Welcome.
Who y'all? Oh, whoa, hey. Good grief. Hey, y'all. Hey, y'all. This is different. Hey, I'm Crystal. I'm an alcoholic. Woo-wee, there's a lot of little heads on here. This is little heads, big bodies. It's cool. Hey, okay, I'm Crystal. I'm an alcoholic. I'm going to start out with a joke. It's more for me than it is for y'all, so just bear with me. Just kind of breaks the ice a little bit. So let's see. So there was an old-timer named Johnny coming home from a meeting one night, and he was just thinking about how much he loved AA. And he gets home, and he does what we've been taught to do, and he gets on his knees, and he starts thanking God for keeping him sober and thinking about, you know, I wonder if when I pass away, I wonder if there'll be Alcoholics Anonymous in heaven. And he's like, you know, God, he's like, I really hope there's Alcoholics Anonymous in heaven, because if not, I sure would miss Kip's jokes, and I would miss Katie's hugs. Katie, right? Yeah. And I'd miss what's left of Jerry's, you know, his jokes. And he's like, you know, I don't know if I want to go to heaven if there's not Alcoholics Anonymous in heaven. And then there's like a big bang of thunder and a big lightning bolt. And then God was like, Johnny, that's God. He's like, Johnny, he's like, I got some good news and some bad news. The good news is there is AA in heaven. The bad news is you're speaking tomorrow night. So, y'all are muted or you're not laughing. I don't know. I was talking about y'all. Okay, anyway, y'all have to bear with me. This is my first time doing this hybrid thing, but my sponsor reminded me that a room of Alcoholics Anonymous is just a room of drunks, right? So we're all the same. Y'all are my people. And we have a guy in High Point, Kevin W. He talks about the only two places he's ever felt at home is bellied up to a bar and in these rooms. And that's me. I'm just not quite to that there, you know, right there yet, but I will be in a few minutes. Hopefully God will show up. Anyway, let's see. Let me get some stuff out of the way. Is this what I'm supposed to leave up here? Okay. All right, let's see. I told y'all I'm an alcoholic. I have a sobriety date. It's February 19th, 2017. I have a home group. It's the spiritual group. We meet on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. It's always an open speaker meeting. If you're in High Point, we'd love to have you. I have a sponsor who you just met, and she has a sponsor who's out there somewhere. And I also have the honor and privilege of sponsoring other women, which has been different
and awesome and very rewarding, and it's like looking in a mirror. So it's taught me a lot. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let's see. The big book tells me that I'm supposed to tell y'all in a general way what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like today. And also, I was reminded by a friend also that, how I've established a relationship with God or my higher power. So hopefully I can do that. Let's see. I was born in Greensboro, not far from here, actually. And I always say it was a cold October night. I don't know. I don't know if it was cold. I don't know. I guess it was cold. It was October. But anyway, I was born here in Greensboro. I'm the youngest of 5 girls. Growing up, I had a pretty what I thought at the time was a pretty normal childhood. I always say that sometimes when I tell people about even when I'm not giving a talk, I like to tell stories. You know what I mean? So like I'm an open book. I'll tell you all kinds of stuff. And hopefully most of it today is true, right? Anyway, so I didn't know until I started getting older, but I always thought I had a normal childhood. But then as I got older, I realized that we were kind of poor, right? But we weren't I always say we weren't like dirt floor poor. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we were like, I always say we were like upper class poor, like we were like the upper class poor people. And but anyway, I didn't ever go without anything that I needed. I had a lot of stuff that I wanted. Looking back now, there were some really cool things about my childhood. I tell stories about how we grew a lot of our own vegetables, and my grandma and us would can them. And I didn't know until I went to my first sleepover that everybody didn't do that, right? I just thought it was just normal. Kind of like later in life in my drinking, I thought everybody drank like I did, I thought everybody canned vegetables, And then I went to a friend's house, and they had this big pantry that was about as big as the bedroom that I shared with my sister. And I go in there, and she's got all these canned vegetables, and it was kind of like sleeping with the enemy. They were lined up real beautiful and OCD-like. And and I go in, and I'm like, wow, what is all this, And I went home, and I told Mom, I was like, they must be millionaires. They have all these cans of food and stuff, And Mom was like, that's just normal stuff, Now I wish I had the stuff in the jars, right? It's good stuff. But anyway, so that's kind of how I grew up, and I grew up in the church, and we were in church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. My Aunt Faye played the piano and the organ. We were very, very involved in church. I was actually, just last week, I was in that church again. And that church, I grew up with a lot of fear, though, right? As a little kid, I was afraid of the dark. I was afraid of church. I was afraid of the God that they taught me about in the church. I remember one time being at that church, and I thought... I don't know if we were Southern Baptists, so I don't know if y'all, what waders are when you get baptized. The preacher would wear waders, to get into the water, because you got to be all the way dunked under to get good and saved, And anyway, my Aunt Faye was playing the piano, and we were just, me and my cousin were just running around behind, and we weren't supposed to be back there behind where the baptismal pool thing was. And I saw, in this little stall, I could see just the feet of the waders that the preacher would wear, right? And I never knew he wore those things because I hadn't been baptized yet. So I didn't even know. All I saw was, the feet of the waders about this far off the ground. And me and my cousin just swore it was the devil. We're like, we're not supposed to be back here, and da-da-da, and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, I just had a lot of fear, and we got in big trouble for being back there when we were told that it wasn't the devil, right? But anyway, I was in that church recently, last week, for a funeral, and I was just thinking about how it was the first time that I have been, around some of those people in years and years and years, and it was the first time I'd been in that church in probably 15 or 20 years. Excuse me. And I was thinking that, I was like, what's the difference? Where's that fear gone, right? Because I have been around those people before I got sober, and the fear was still there. I still had that same fear around those people that I'd had since I was a little kid, and I didn't feel it. And I could look them in the eye, and I could say, hey, how are you? And just talk to them like a normal person, right? And I realized it was the promise is coming true, right? The fear had been removed. and I could look people in the eye, even in the middle of sadness, right? And I'll get into that in a little bit, but that's one of the things that the program of AA has given me in the steps. But anyway, so grew up in Greensboro. When I was about 13, we moved to Columbia, South Carolina. Hey, Columbia lady, I didn't see you when you waved your hand, but go Gamecocks. Anyway, so when I was about 13, we moved to Columbia, and I, like I said, I had grown up with all these cousins and my sisters and all this, and it was a big change for me. We moved down there, and that was when I started, like, kind of, even though I didn't realize what it was, I started, like, wearing masks and stuff. I could fit in with whoever, right? And I still hadn't discovered a drink yet. And I probably should say that since we were raised in church, I mean, it might go without saying, but we didn't drink. There was no drinking in the house. We didn't listen. We even went through a phase where we didn't listen to rock and roll music. We couldn't watch certain movies, like even Dirty Dancing was like frowned upon, you know, and that's a classic now, right? But anyway, that's just kind of how we were raised. We get down to Columbia, and things were different. I wasn't around all my cousins, and I started listening to rock and roll music and all kinds of other stuff, and just trying to fit in, right? And even with my family, like I felt, I still, you know, a lot of people say we never feel like we fit in. I felt like I fit in okay with my family, but I always felt like something was just off. And for me, the biggest thing, like I said, was just that fear. I just constantly had fear, and I didn't even know what it was, but it was just like a constant feeling of unease in my gut, right? So anyway, I started high school down there, and that's when I found the drink, right? Was when I was in high school, and I drank alcoholically from the very first time I took a drink. I went to a party, and they were doing keg stands, and I didn't know what that was. I'd never even seen a keg. I don't even know if I'd seen a movie with a keg in it, but I kind of got the idea of what's going on. They're going to hold you upside down. You're going to drink this beer, and you're going to have fun. And so I was like, okay, sign me up. And I did it, and then I started drinking lots of shots. And whatever else they would hand me, I would take it. And I got good and drunk, and then I got sick. And next thing I know, I'm like passing out in a pile of fire ants and all this, and I thought it was fantastic. You know, like I just thought, like, this is awesome, right? And so I didn't start drinking like every day from them, but I thought about it a lot. You know, I was like, this is great. This is what the cool kids are doing. This is what, you know, and I didn't feel any fear. I wasn't fearful of people. I wasn't fearful of anything once I got drunk, you know, once I got the effects produced by alcohol. So anyway, I started, you know, I just did it. I just drank on weekends and stuff like that. As I got a little bit older, I started into college. I started waitressing, and it was like at a comedy place, right? And I started waitressing, and those people in service industry, and I was one of them, we liked to drink, right? And that seemed like normal. That's what I was talking about earlier. It just seemed like that's what we did. Everybody drank. You know, we would go to work. We would work hard, and then we'd get off work and we'd go to the bar, and we would drink until we got drunk, and then we would go home and pass out and do it over again. And I didn't think there was a problem. And I started drinking. I wasn't having any consequences for a while. I could kind of keep it between the ditches, you know, like I was kind of paying my bills and keeping things in check. And people started kind of noticing there were some things off with me when I started doing things like falling out of cars and things like that, you know. I remember one time in Columbia, like I fell on my face straight out of the car, you know, just fell straight on my face and got my face all cut up and all this. And I just thought, and people were always like, what is wrong with you? Why can't you slow down? Just stop a little bit sooner, you know, like, why do you have to go so hard? And I'm like, what are you talking? What? That's the point. You know, like, I just couldn't wrap my head around that. Right. And, so my drinking started getting out of control to the point where, my family started noticing that I was just getting out of control. I was needing help with my bills and things like that. And so people started kind of saying some things to me about my drinking. Well, then I had started gaining some weight, and we were talking about this earlier. I'd started gaining some weight, and I was ballooning up, as sometimes we do, right? And so I decided I was going to go to Weight Watchers and to try to lose some weight. And so I went to Weight Watchers, and in the Weight Watchers, they would give you a book, And it wasn't quite as big as our big book, but they'd give you a book, and inside the book, it would have all these recipes and things like that. But at the very back of the book, there was an index, and it had like every food or drink you could think of and how many points it was. And so like they'd say, if you want to lose X number of pounds, you got to stay under 20 points a day or whatever. So I flipped back and I found like Miller Lite, Grand Marnier. Where's that? Okay, two points for Miller Lite, 1 point for Grand Marnier. And they'd give you a little trifold pamphlet, kind of like our stuff. It was kind of actually a lot like Alcoholics Anonymous now that I think about it. But anyway, they'd give me a little pamphlet and they'd say, write down what you eat and drink on there. And so I would do that every day. And I'd put like, at this point I was bartending. I'd put like breakfast, nothing, lunch, nothing, dinner. I would go to Burger King every day, right? I'd sleep late. I'd go to Burger King. I'd get me a Whopper. And then I'd eat, I'd go to work, and then after I got off work, I'd go to the bar. And I was trying to, I still thought, you know how it talks about we have moral convictions galore, right? Like I thought I was trying to be a good girl. I was being honest about my drinking. In my pamphlet, you know, I'd write down Miller Lights, and I'd do like little check marks, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, whatever, you know. And I was staying under my points. And so I was losing weight. And every week I'd go to weigh in, and there'd be a podium, and the lady'd be here, and there'd be a scale beside it, and she'd be like, hey, Crystal, you know, you pay her your little $10, and you step on the scale, and she's like, great job, you lost 1.8 pounds this week, great job. I'm like, thank you, you know, and in my head I'm thinking, I'm not an alcoholic, obviously, because I'm losing weight, and I'm drinking the way I want to drink, so these people don't know what they're talking about, you know. And one day she was like, you're doing so great, can I see your pamphlet? And I was like, what you talking about, Willis? You know, I was like, what? And I was like, what do you want to see my pamphlet for? You know, and she was like, well, I just want to share with the other Weight Watchers people, you know, how you're doing so well. And that was the first time that I felt guilt and shame over my drinking, right? Which normal people don't feel like. Like a normal non-alcoholic would be like, sure, no problem, here's my paper, right? But like, I was embarrassed, and rightfully so. She looks at my paper, and her face was like, you didn't eat breakfast or lunch? And I was like, nope. And she's like, and you ate a Whopper every day? And I was like, well, except for on Fridays and Saturdays, I would eat a Junior Whopper because it gave me more points to drink, you know? And she was like, what is this Miller Lite? She's like, Miller Lite, you had 12 Miller Lights on Monday night? And I was like, I stayed under my points, ma'am. What's the problem? You know? And then she's like, what is Grand Marnier? And then, you know, I told you I came from a poor family. I don't know why, but I just have to wear these masks and pretend like I'm somebody else. And I acted like all bougie, and I'm like, it's an after dinner drink. And she's like, yeah, but you had 8 last night, you know? I snatched my pamphlet. I was like, you know what? Forget it. I don't need Weight Watchers. And I just left. And I still didn't think I had a problem, you know? I just thought, this lady doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm following your rules, you know? And I still, you know, I just didn't think she knew what she was talking about. So obviously my drinking progressed, right? And it got worse and worse, and I started losing some things, and I lost material things first. My family almost loved me to death, right? They just kept bailing me out. And I kept losing more things. And so the first time I went to treatment, I remember, you know, it had gotten to the point where my family didn't trust me. My family didn't want to be around me. My sisters, who were super close, and there's a lot of love between us, but like they could not trust me. You know, I had one sister, she moved, and she moved to another city, and when she moved, she wouldn't even tell me where she lived. She wouldn't even give me her address. And who said wow? I know, that's crazy, right? It is crazy. And you know, they didn't want me around my mom because my mom was like, I was stealing from her, and you know, just crazy shenanigans, right? And just really things that, you know, I'm embarrassed of, but I know now that like hopefully my story can help somebody else, right? Because that was just the disease of alcoholism, right? Thanks for the thumbs up there, Mr. Jerry. And anyway, so things started getting progressively worse, like the disease does, and I couldn't stop. And as much as I love my sisters and I love my mom, I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop taking from her. I couldn't stop worry. You know, I did not care that she was worried sick about me. I didn't care that my sisters didn't know where I was. I didn't care that they wouldn't give me their address. I wasn't embarrassed or ashamed of that at all. Now, earlier in my drinking career, I was embarrassed that about the Weight Watchers lady, knowing all that stuff, right? But the people who loved me the most at that point in my drinking career, it didn't matter to me at all. And so things got worse and worse, and I became homeless. And I remember I was calling everybody I could think of to try to get money and to try to, get whatever. And people were just getting fed up with me, and rightfully so, right? So I called one cousin, and he apparently called my sisters, and they decided to try to do like a little intervention. They set me up is what they did. They set me up. But I'm glad they did, right? So my sisters, I think I'm meeting my cousin at McDonald's to get some money. And I go into McDonald's, and like all of my sisters come piling out of the bathroom, right? Like they're the SWAT team. And they said I looked like I was a rabid dog. They come out of the bathroom, and they're like, down girl. And I was like looking, like trying to find, like, where do I go? Just for a second, I was like, where's the exit? And then my sister's like, we found a detox and a treatment place for you. Can you please go? Will you please think about going? And I was like, I just broke down, and I was just so sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I'd heard like that old country song, but that was the first time in my life that I really just felt like I could relate to it. And I started crying, and I was like, okay. And, I'd had people before. I had been in and out of relationships, and people had encouraged me or threatened, however you want to look at it. Encouraged, kind of threatened me to go to AA or to go to treatment. And I never would go. I just wasn't done, I would think I wanted to go. I would tell them, okay, I'm going to go to an AA meeting. They'd find it for me. They would tell me, find the address, tell me where it was and all this. And then I would go to the bar instead, and I'd sit there, in the book where it talks about the guy like banging his head on the bar, banging his fist. He's like, well, how did I get here again? That was me. And I'd never even gotten sober yet, but I could relate to that when I saw that part in the book, because that was me and my drinking. I just wanted to stop so bad. I didn't want to be who I was, right? But I couldn't stop. So anyway, my sisters were like, will you go to treatment? Will you go to detox and rehab and all this? And I was like, okay. And so I went, and I remember, I had been sleeping on the floor of a room at a boarding house that wasn't even mine. I couldn't even afford to pay for the room. This lady just let me sleep there. And I remember her telling me like, there was a lot of crazy things going on there. And I couldn't eat. She would like not let me eat their food, right? And I didn't care. As long as she let me drink the way I wanted to there, I didn't even care about that. But I did get hungry sometimes. And I remember sometimes her being like, you can have some food tonight. And I was like, really? And I'd run downstairs to get some food. And she'd be like, or you can have this beer. Which one do you want, the beer or the food? And I remember, like, every time, I'm going to take the liquor, So anyway, I go to treatment the first time, and I was so grateful. I was in a room that had, like, cinder block walls and, like, a tiny little mattress. And some of the girls were in there complaining about, this place is nasty. And I was just so grateful to have a bed and not be sleeping on the floor, and to have, 3 meals a day and all that. And I really thought that, like, I was done. I was like, this is it. I had a little bit of hope. My family was, like, so happy, over the moon. They're like, this is going to be awesome. You're going to change your life and blah, blah, blah. And I really thought that was it, And I came into the rooms, and I started going to meetings every day. And I heard y'all say all the stuff that we still say. Get a sponsor, work the steps. And they'd given me a book when I was in treatment the first time. They gave me a big book, and I read through it, and like we do, and I started working the steps right in there. I was like, well, I don't really need to do this step. And I know my life's powerless. I know I'm powerless over alcohol. My life's unmanageable, and I don't know about the whole God thing, because I didn't really like church and all this, but I could make some amends, and I think I would like to with some of my exes. That would be good. And I'm going to go ahead and do that right now and start writing some letters. And so I did, and they were not well received. The people were like, they wouldn't even contact me. They would just contact my family and be like, please tell her not to contact us again, And I didn't understand that because my letters were so nice. I was like, listen, I know I'm in treatment and detox, and I don't have a home or a job or anything like that, and I know I owe you thousands of dollars, but when I get out of treatment and get a job, you know, and they were not well received. But anyway, so when I got out and I started going to meetings and stuff like that, that's all I did. I just went to meetings, right? I didn't get a sponsor. I did not work a step. I take that back. I worked the first 3 steps with like 3 different times with 3 different sponsors because I'd worked the steps, and when I got into the steps and my sponsors started giving me suggestions that seemed a little more difficult, like, I don't know, call me every day, you know, stuff like that. And I thought, this is kind of crazy, you know, like, and I was like, I forgot to call you. And she's like, well, set an alarm. And I'm like, to call you? You know, it just seemed a bit much to me. And so I just kept trying to go to meetings. And, you know, I've heard people say, and if this works for you, that's great. It just didn't work for me. I've heard people say, like, meeting makers make it. And I stayed sober a little while just on meetings, you know, because I love y'all, right? We talk about this a lot. Like, we're entertaining, right? Just like, this may not be entertaining to y'all tonight, but at a regular meeting, or when we go out to lunch, or if we go to a retreat, we were talking about retreats or whatever, we go to the beach and stuff, right? Like, we have fun. We are funny. We are fun to be around, you know? So I loved y'all. And I felt at home. But life shows up, right? And like, I still had that void in my soul, right? I still had that sense of dis-ease in my gut, right? And I was not good with the praying thing, right? Like, I just wasn't. And I wasn't good with taking any suggestions. So surprise, surprise, you know what happened? I got drunk again. And you know, they talk about the disease being progressive, and it was very progressive. And it's deadly, right? Like, I watched a lot of people die that got sober with me or stopped drinking the first time I stopped drinking. And within 6 months, the material things, right? Because I had no connection with God still. But I did, just when I put the drink down, like, I can get some stuff back, you know? I can get a car, and I can get a job, and I can go to the job and things like that, you know? And but I didn't have a connection with God at all. And so when I got drunk, it was like I picked up right where I stopped, right? It was like I had never even stopped drinking, and things were just way worse. And so I lost everything. I'm homeless again. And I was just laying there one night, and I called some people from AA that I remembered. And I said, can y'all please come get me and help me and take me to detox again? And so they showed up the next morning at like 10 o'clock in the morning. And by then I was feeling a little bit better. And I was like, I called them. I was like, hey, I'm good. Can y'all give me like 2 hours? Just give me like 2 hours, you know? And they were good AAs. And they were like, no, girl, we on the way. Well, you said 10 o'clock, we're there. Let's go, you know? And so they took me, and I still thought I knew something. And there was a guy from Archdale that brought a meeting into the hospital. And I remember he was sitting there, and I was so mad. I was just like, how did I get here again? You know, like, well, how did I get here? I ain't been nowhere. I was just not drinking. I wasn't sober or nothing. You know, in my heart, my life still sucked. You know, I still had that restless, irritable discontent, and just like a general sadness, you know, in my heart. And I just thought I had some stuff back. But I was so mad, like, here I am again. You know, I've lost everything, and I'm sitting there being so rude and disrespectful. This man's doing service work and taking a meeting in, and I could care less once again, right? Not once again, because I never really stopped, you know, not caring about anybody but myself, right? Because I'm just incredibly self-centered. And so I'm sitting there tapping on the table, and he's like, ma'am. And finally I was like, what? And he's like, you ever been to an AA meeting before? And I was like, yeah, I know. Yeah, I've been. I know how it works. And I laugh now because I was completely serious. Like, I really meant that. Like, yes, I know what the steps say. I know about all the tools y'all I know. And he was so kind, though. He just kind of chuckled a tiny little bit. And he's like, well, maybe not, because you back in here. I was like, I love him now. But he the first year I celebrated this first year of sobriety after that hospital trip, he heard it announced one night in a meeting, and he's like, oh, golly, you celebrating the year? He's like, I don't come to that. That's a miracle. I didn't think she'd ever stay sober a year. I was like, thanks, buddy, thanks. No. But he's a good guy. So anyway, so I came in this time, and I started taking suggestions. And honestly, I was just like so dead on the inside that I was just willing to do whatever anybody suggested to do, you know. And I came in and I started going to a meeting every day, and I got a sponsor, and I started actually working the steps. And that sadness in my heart and that emptiness in my soul, it started to be filled up with God. And I still I didn't even know that's what it was. I was just taking suggestions, right? Y'all said get on your knees at night and thank him for keeping you sober. Get on your knees in the morning and ask him to keep you sober. And I did that. And I started just feeling, it says my internet connection is unstable. Okay. I thought it was saying I was unstable. I was like, I know. This is a fancy computer. It's telling me I'm unstable. I was like, not today, Satan. Not today. Not today. Anyway, I forgot what I was saying now. Anybody? What was it? Oh yeah, praying. Yeah. So y'all were I just started taking suggestions, and I didn't know how to pray, even though I was raised in church, right? Because I felt like that God that I was raised believing, I felt like that God didn't want to have anything to do with me, right? I felt like I had done so much, so bad, for so long that I was doomed, right? But I believed that y'all believed, right? I could see that there was some kind of power working in your life. And I still didn't even know if I believed in that power or if that power would work for me, but I believed in y'all. For a while, I just believed in y'all and that there was something at work in your life. And I worked with one sponsor for a while, and she was great. She helped me tremendously, and she taught me a lot. And then I changed sponsors, and I started working with another lady, and or y'all met her. I act like y'all know who she is. But anyway, I started working with another sponsor, and I remember I was also. One suggestion I did not take very well either time was the relationship one, right? I was in a relationship the first time I got sober, and somehow we managed not to kill each other, and we both made it back to the program this time. I made it back a little bit before she did, and I remember, and she was, I had bonded her out of jail, and when I started working with the sponsor that I have now, I remember calling her after I had about 7 months sober, and I was trying to take every suggestion y'all gave me, and everybody was like, you've got to stop enabling her, right? Let her hit her bottom. And I had gone to treatment one time, and they were like, who are you to deprive somebody else of their bottom? And I was like, what? I'm just trying to be the hand of AA, you know? With 7 months, I got something to offer somebody. I'm trying to be the hand of AA. No, I was about to love her to death, right? Just like people would love me to death. And so they were like, you've got to stop, you know, and you can't afford to pay that if she don't go to court. And so I needed to call the bondsman to turn her in. And I didn't want to do it, right? Because I had old ideas, which is still something I struggle with still today, right? If I'm having a hard time surrendering to y'all or to the program or to a suggestion, it's because of some of my old ideas, right? And so anyway, my sponsor was like, well, I called her one day and I was like, I'm supposed to turn her in today. I'm supposed to turn her in. I got to call the bonds person and tell her where my partner is, and I just don't want to do it. I don't want to be a snitch. You know what I mean? Snitches get stitches. That's what I heard. I'm just kidding. I wasn't really that hard, but I like, you know, it sounds cool though, doesn't it? But anyway, I was like, I don't want to be a snitch, you know? And my sponsor was like, well, have you prayed about it? And I was completely 100% serious. And I said, no, I've been at work all day. What are you talking about? I really did. I was like, and I was dead serious. I was like, no, I haven't prayed about it. I had a really busy day at work today, and I didn't even have time to go to the bathroom. She's like, you don't have to go to the bathroom to pray. And it's just old ideas, right? Like I thought that I had to have this like beautiful, eloquent, like sacred space and time and all this to talk to God, and that's just not how it works. And she's like, well, just pull over wherever you are and take a second and pray. And I was just like, God, I don't even know what to do. God, I don't know what to do. Just help me. Just help me. And I got done praying, and like 30 seconds later, the phone rings, and it's that bonds lady, and she's like, hey, it's me. Don't worry about it. We already got her. We don't need you to do anything. And I was like, what? That's crazy. That's crazy, right? And so that was the first time that I started seeing like the power of prayer working in my life. And so then I continued working with that sponsor because I got pretty excited, and I was like, this is pretty cool. This prayer, like maybe this God does hear me after all, right? And so I continued praying. But then it started kind of getting on my nerves because no matter what I would say to her, she would always say, well, have you prayed about it? Well, have you prayed about it? Well, have you prayed about it? And I'd be like, there's got to be something else. Like, there's got to be something else, And we were working the steps, right? There is something else. There is the steps too, right? And I was in the midst of working the steps. But I just felt like sometimes, I still needed a reaction, right? I still needed to, like, if somebody cussed me out at work, I need to cuss them back. I don't need to pray about it, But I see Sandy laughing at me because and that's not what I need to do, right? And the truth of the matter is that I don't know what I need to do, right? I don't know what I need. And that's what I have learned more than anything in the process of working the steps and working with you guys and working with other people, is that I still don't know, right? We talk about this all the time. I don't know what's good for me. And so I just prayed about it when she would tell me, just pray about it. And then more and more things started happening. All those sisters who wanted to call the police on me, and my sisters who wouldn't tell me where they lived, they started coming back around. And they started asking me what my thoughts were on things. And they started, we had to put my mom in a nursing home. And my sister's like, we want you to be like I'm the number one person they call, and we want you to be the number two person. And I was like, what? Y'all can count on me that I'm going to answer the phone. I didn't even have the same phone number for, more than 6 months at a time. You know what I mean? I'd get a phone, lose it, steal another one, get some, whatever. And I never had the same phone number for more than 6 months usually. And so I started making amends with those sisters, and it completely changed the dynamics of our whole family. Again, right? Like alcoholism, it affects our family horribly, or it affected my family horribly, right? And then the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, though, right? It affects us. It affects them too. Like they get to witness me doing stuff, and sometimes they don't like it. I made amends to somebody at the funeral another funeral a couple weeks ago, and I didn't say anything to my sister. I just did what I've been taught to do, right? I saw this person, and I tried to go up and be kind and loving to them, and then my sister sees me, and then later my sister's like, I'm going to kill you. I was like, for what? And she's like, I saw you talking to him and loving on him, and so I felt like I needed to, and now, and then she's like, and he was mean, whatever, doesn't matter. But the point is, it rubs off on your family. That's all I'm saying. It rubs off on them, and we have a beautiful relationship. I was able to, that church that I was telling you about, right? Like, I went into that church, and my Aunt Faye was the one that played the piano. When she passed away, luckily, right, like we had been able to work some things out, because there was a time that we did not see eye to eye, and she did not like my drinking and didn't like the person that I was becoming, and so there was some pain there, right? But because of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, when I went to her memorial service, I told my sponsor and a few other people, and apparently now I'm telling, 100 of y'all. But anyway, that's all right. Y'all are family too. But, there was a piece about me because, in that church, I was able to close my eyes and feel completely comfortable in my own skin for the first time in my whole life. In that same church that used to fill me with so much fear and worry and just confusion. And I was able to close my eyes and think about how much she meant to me and how much I loved her, and how much, although we didn't see eye to eye on things, she knew that I was okay, and that she finally knew before she passed away that I had a connection with my God just like she had with hers, right? It was a different relationship and probably the same God. And if it wasn't, that's okay too, you know? But I was able to sit there and feel okay. And for me, for a drunk like me, like that's a big thing, right? That's a miracle, really, for me to feel comfortable in my own skin. So that was one of the things that the program's given to me, along with all the renewed relationships with my family. We were talking about it today at the meeting this morning about how full our lives are, right? And I just celebrated 40 years, and my sponsor likes to get on to me because I always act like I should be sober now. I'm super sober. I'm still really sick, right? But I thought I was going to get like a not a medallion, but like a certificate, you know? And you don't. If you don't have 4 years yet, you don't. Hate to burst your bubble. But anyway, we were talking this morning about how full our lives are. And like the last year, there's been a lot of changes in my life. And sometimes I like lose sight of how fortunate and blessed I am that I have been given such a full life, right? And I had gotten to where I'm like, man, I got to go to another meeting. Man, I got to go meet with my sponsor. Just kidding. Man, I got to go meet with this pigeon. Man, I got to go to dinner with my friends. Man, I got to go help my sisters or see my sisters. And I forget that, like, 4 years is not a long time. A little over 4 years ago, I didn't have people like this that are like y'all, right? Like, I got people that I know here from Greensboro that I saw this morning that said, I want to hear you talk tonight. I'm going to show up. And she showed up, right? I have people from High Point that were like, I want to go to a meeting with you tonight. I want to go hear you talk, right? I have family who want me to be around. I have women who have asked me to take them through the steps. That's crazy. Somebody sees something in me, right? I'm just a regular old drunk who lied and cheated and stole and did all these terrible things to my family. And then I get big-headed where I think, oh, I got so much to do, right? So much to do. But nobody even wanted me around 4 years ago, right? I have a partner now, the same one, who we haven't killed each other, right? And we still haven't killed each other, and that's a miracle in itself, too, sometimes. Isn't it, Sandy? I see you looking. You know it is. And, yeah. And it's only because of all the gifts we've been given, and I don't mean any of the material things. I mean all the relationships in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, the relationships with our families, and most importantly, the relationship with our God, right? That just makes, even when everything is not okay, it's still okay. You know what I mean? Like in my heart, like I don't have that sadness. And the speaker this morning was talking about, like in the long version of the Serenity Prayer, that it just says we're going to be reasonably happy in this life, right? And I have to remind myself of that because sometimes I get jacked up and I'm all excited, and especially the first couple of years, right? I was on that pink cloud, and I don't have to be all the way up here, but things are great even when they're just right here. You know what I mean? It's still great. I'm getting ready to go to Disney World with my partner's family, and we already paid for it a couple months ago. You know, that's insane to me. I remember when I was living in Columbia and I wanted to come home for Thanksgiving, and it was the night before Thanksgiving, and I was bartending, and I'd made plenty of money to go home for Thanksgiving, plenty of money. And I sat there at the bar, and I drank away about half of it. And then I sat there, and I was like, I can still make it to Greensboro. With half of it. And then I drank away another quarter of it. And then I sat there crying, drinking away everything, and couldn't even go home for Thanksgiving. And now here I am, able to pay for a trip with people that want us to go, right? I have animals, which I don't know if you love animals, but I love my animals. We have a dog and a cat, and we take them to the vet and stuff. You know what I mean? I go to the doctor. I get checked up. That's just crazy. That's just crazy to me, you know? First time I went to treatment, I'll tell you this real quick. The first time I went to treatment, they were like, well, you went to the hospital a couple weeks ago. It looks like you had pneumonia. Did you get treated for that? And I was like, no. Like, I'm not going to spend $20 on a medicine for pneumonia for my lungs when I could spend that on some Miller Lite and Grand Marnier. You know what I mean? Absolutely. But I go to the doctor today. I take care of myself. I take care of my animals. I have a job that can be challenging, but like with the power of y'all and the God of my understanding. Like, I had the courage to leave a job that I've been at for a long time, Also because my sponsor said, do it or quit complaining, But she loves me enough to tell me the truth. And I can't even put into words how amazing this life is today. And even when I'm not as grateful as I should be, I still get blessed over and over and over. And I just love y'all so much, and thank y'all for listening to me. I love all y'all out in Zoom land, and thank y'all too. I love y'all too. Thank you.